Thank you. Please shut my door when you're leaving. Bye, son. I'm live now. Thank you for the lunch. Have a good day.
You too. But what is lunch, Dan? What are we eating today?
He was so kind
Gourmet.
to bring me this gourmet chicken nugget
Look at
plate.
this. Look at this. Are they in dinosaur shapes? Are they dinosaur shapes?
They are dinosaur shapes. Check it out. I like dinosaur shapes. And
Stegosaurus.
yes, and the best thing is he said, Dad, I've created this great sauce. It's got buffalo garlic,
Mm-hmm.
red hot, I think he said. I don't know, and some ranch dressing. So
Nice.
let's see how he did here, guys.
Come on. This is torture.
Oh, I wish you guys weren't social distancing and you could enjoy
Exquisite. Exquisite. I love it.
dinosaur chicken McNuggets or whatever they are. And he brought me this extravagant ice water. Awesome. So Dan here again. And I've got my weekly powwow here with the one and only David Pavlik with Goel Worldwide, live from his bus.
That's it, man.
Beautiful bus. He's like John Madden now, traveling the country.
Well, I was gonna be actually until coronavirus hit. So
Yeah, you can't get out of the state.
no, man, it's tough for travel right now. So we've got to pretty much stay put where we're at.
Yeah, so today Dave's going to educate us on what if this is the new norm. I mean, what adjustments or preparations are you making for life after this? So go ahead, David, man, talk to us. Tell us what you think, what you're seeing, what's going on in the world with this.
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, I just think, well, first of all, I've got beef with you, so we've got to settle our beef first.
Okay.
Dan introduced me on Facebook yesterday and called me a guru, man. I'm not. You got to care in this space, especially. You got to be careful with the guru. That just gets thrown around, and you got 19-year-old kids out there saying that they're real estate gurus.
Oh, yes. They learned how to do this. And
yeah, of course. They took a YouTube course.
Yes, but you are the mind behind many, many successful acts.
Listen, I've had some great mentors. I've had some great people that have spoken into my life, and I love to be able to share, that with friends, family, with those that'll listen. So at the end of the day, I'm still learning. I'm still a student by all means, and still executing. Oh, what is this? Is this?
This was a potato.
Imported potato chips from.
Oh,
Italy?
from Ida.
Oh.
Ida made them for me.
So Dan, what if the new norm is you have to eat chicken nuggets and you won't be able to import Omaha steaks, and flaunt it to us that are not able to break bread with you.
So for me, a dinosaur chicken nuggets and Ida potatoes would be a fantastic diet for me. I could live on that.
Right.
That would work. I would like that.
Yeah, not as much as a steak though. So no, listen. So there's a lot of things going on, and there's still a lot of optimism. Which, listen, I'm not well, but I'm also a realist, right? I want to see things obviously go back to normal, whatever that looks like. But the reality is, as this continues to extend, and as the losses continue to extend, more and more employers, cutting wages, cutting jobs, laying off, and resources over time are going to become depleted. So even employers that said, we're going to keep our staff on and pay them, for a couple weeks, right? Like it was 2-3 weeks. And now we're seeing, obviously they can't sustain that perpetually. Common math will tell you it's not possible to sustain that.
I think we're starting to see that because you're starting to hear of these big businesses starting to kind of have to let people go, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, and we've been, to our team, you and I have had some very passionate conversations around this topic several weeks ago. privately, you know what I mean, not online, about what may or may not happen. And you know, the signs that we've been seeing are very, you know, the messaging and the signs from the markets, both here domestically and international. The types of moves that are happening around the world are not things that happen that you just bounce back from, right? I would love to see just a regular bounce back. However, when entire countries are sustaining massive losses in revenue, and then their infrastructure is being weakened because their businesses are sustaining those massive losses. So, you know, you start creating a domino effect that starts rippling around the world. Okay. And that's just going to, you know, both domestically here, we see it happening. You can only go without income for so long. And then you have to move into survival mode. And so, you know, companies that are, you know, they're smart, they're business savvy. Obviously, they have to balance compassion with just numbers. And you can only keep on a staff for a certain period of point until it's bleeding the company dry. And so whatever reserves companies had will be depleted. And so they're actually, you know, they're holding on, right? They're cutting their losses and they're trying to pay that back. Plus, on top of that, you know, a lot of the incentives that are coming out, both personally, you know, to the individuals, and you know, these business loans and incentives that are being released as well with these packages, which, you know, as we pointed out, is the PPP program is now hit max already, right? Like that's whatever 354
Yeah,
billion.
just like that. And then the Florida small business, I know that they were given like the SBA loans, 50,000 or whatever, but they only had a certain limit.
Yeah.
So only like 100 people or something got it, or 1,000. No, 1,000 people got it because they had 50 million, and it was gone just like that.
Well, look at even the local thing, the rent program, right? Like we have a close friend of ours who she works for Orange County, and she's part of the emergency response desk and stuff there. So when the emergency desk goes on call, her department goes on call, and they were responsible for the rent assistance program. So her team had to transition from what their regular job was to transitioning into managing the rent relief program that Orange County had, right? And, bro, they received hundreds of thousands of people, you know, in Central Florida alone calling in to take advantage of the rent assistance program. And so they've got, literally, they have to set up one-on-one appointments. So they closed that within a week, right? It opened, and then it was like open for like a week and a half, maybe two, remember? And then they closed it, and only like 20,000 people will get the actual rental assistance, you know? So the other folks calling in are, you know, it's too much demand. Plus it's going to take them, I was talking to her, it's going to take them probably 3 months, bro, to go through and set, because they have to set individual phone appointments. So all these people that called in for rental assistance, you know, they have to do one-on-one appointments to make sure that they qualify. They have to meet certain requirements. So they're like, we've got like 3 to 6 months worth of work for like a team of like 5 to go through, you know, 20, 30,000 people that want this rent assistance, you know, help from Orange County.
And it's just, it's unbelievable. Now, what do you say? So I was talking to, and you've met him. He's like, might as well be my blood brother, my best friend Brian down in South Florida. And he said one of the things that he foresees happening, and I don't know if you see the same thing, is these business owners that don't have any reserve, and or not any reserve, but they don't have enough reserve to sustain long term. So now they get to a point where they say, you know what, government, you know, right there, and we're going to open up our business. We're going to go out and get back to work. We're going to go out and do things that you're telling us we can't do because we don't have a choice, and we have to put food on our table and feed our family. And now there's angst because you're going to have the guy across the street wanting to kill the guy that's open because that guy is causing everybody else to possibly get sick, and maybe pushing people to make life or death decisions.
Right.
So you're starting to see some of that, and you're going to get the transaction anxiety and all that other stuff. So What do you see as people get kind of backed into a corner in our society and say, you know what, I really want to get back open. I'm
Right.
going to do it anyway, and they throw their hands up. And do you see that happening as well?
It Listen, if they don't begin to start to do something to allow people to get back to business, and there's, there are businesses that, like I think we mentioned last week when we talked about pivoting, right? There are businesses that can more easily pivot, right, and do some. But if you're a restaurant, it's a lot more difficult for you to pivot, right? It's a lot more
Right.
difficult for you to go and just serve food online. Like, you can't, like, what do? You can do home delivery. There's certain things you can do, but obviously you depend, and restaurants depend on the volume of traffic in their area, right? So you pick a location based on, buying trends and patterns, and, density of population and how many people frequent the other stores, and so on and so forth. So they rely on creating competition for each other. And, they won't be able to do that. So, if people can't provide for their family, listen, the reality is, if you look at different revolutions around the world throughout history, it comes down to basic needs, man. If you can't feed your family, if you can't put a roof over your head, people get desperate. They have to do, like, it kicks in, like, survive or flee, like, right? It's you get that, in your brain, and your body secretes those chemicals. It's like survivor, like, I gotta either fight or flight, right? Which one or the other, and we're gonna do
Right.
something. And if this is global, or it's national, there's not, where do you go to, right? Like, Texas is being very robust about their plans, and they're being very vocal and very, they've always been much more for the people and anti-government and all this stuff. So I'm already seeing people like, I'm moving to Texas, because Texas came out and said, freedom of worship is an essential service, and those types of things, and businesses. And so they might be one of the first ones that defy the government, right? We've seen their governor and senators go up against the big government and file lawsuits and stuff. So it's very potential that you see civil unrest in the upcoming, weeks, months, if there's not even an attempt to try to get things back to normal.
And it is, I mean, it is a fine line. You are obviously, um, you're a pastor yourself, and you actually are in that side of the, and you have a worship center.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a fine line. What is your opinion on that? I mean, should we be packing people into worship centers right now, or
Oh,
should we
yeah,
find other ways to adapt? And not that whether you're pro worship or against, whatever you are, the
right.
the issue here is not that. We don't care whether you're pro church or pro not. The question is, do we is it proper? Do
Right.
you believe that we should be putting people in those close quarters?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I heard about this pastor, I forget his name, over, in Tampa area, and he was still holding church services, right? And the police department, or actually the sheriff, came out, and they were there, that Sunday morning to try to deter him from having services. And he stepped up his own private security, like, this whole thing, and then he got arrested or turned himself in. No, I think it's negligent. Listen, whether you believe in the Bible or not, or whatever, if you look at the story of the Bible, if you look at the Messiah, you look at Jesus, right? We call him Yeshua in Hebrew. So if you look at the Messiah, he, as he begins his journey, is taken out into the wilderness and tested, right, by Satan. And he's like, listen, the scriptures say that he will not allow, his son to dash his foot, to hurt his foot on any one of the rocks. Throw yourself off the cliff, and he'll send his angels in to protect you, and prove that you're the Messiah, right? Prove yourself. And the answer is, you shall not put the Lord your God to test, right? Is you're not going to be negligent about your faith. So if you have a faith in God, we believe, and that was my position to our current, and we actually stopped services a week before it was even kind of suggested, or even dropped to like a gathering of 50. We saw where it was going, and how, we just said, look, it's not smart to put our the people that are most potentially most affected by this, or susceptible to this virus, at risk, by having people come and be in close quarters in a tight space. We don't have, a building that affords us to have people 6 feet apart and still be able to sustain services. So if everyone shows up, we're going to be within 1 foot of each other. And so it was just, it would be negligent to do so. And I believe it's putting your Lord to the test, it's putting God to test, which you don't do because you always lose.
And this could be this could be the new norm for religious gatherings to be online.
Yeah.
That we're already doing that to an extent, right?
Well, and I've encouraged it, to be honest with you, with our families. I said, listen, I'm actually excited in a way that this is going on and we're going through this, because it's challenging people of faith to step up and lead their own household. You know, there is a laid back kind of lackadaisical attitude a lot of times that we have towards faith and towards God. And it's kind of the pastor's job or the rabbi's job or the priest's job or whoever it is to deliver the word. So people show up, they get their little nugget of the word, and they kind of go on throughout the week, right? But at the end of the day, it's like I tell my congregants, I'm not going to be there standing between you and God on that day of reckoning and
Yeah.
well, pastor, rabbi.
Yeah. You got to make your own. You got to make your own decisions eventually.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to have your own relationship. You have to have your own spiritual walk. It's not between, leadership is here for guidance, for direction, to facilitate the gathering together of right. momentous occasions.
So the government can say open, but ultimately it's still your place of worship. So you got to make the decision. Absolutely. That being said, so we've seen around the world where some countries have attempted to open,
right,
go back to a little normalcy, open their economic door, per se, and go back thinking immunity has happened to this thing, which we found out we really don't have that yet. But right. They thought, oh, we have this under control, and they've released people back into the streets, and we're starting to kind of see second and third cases or waves of this. So what are you seeing around the world as far as people you're talking to and as far as the groups you're involved in?
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the biggest issue is not so much the virus, because when you really look at the death rate and the virality of the virus, I'm not a physician, I don't, I don't study infectious diseases and everything else. But if you just look at the basic numbers, right, the numbers don't seem to substantiate the fear that is tied along with it. Though I agree we have to take the precautions. You have no choice, right? But just, because what if, right? You have to have, but what if it is that bad, right? However, yes, the fear that goes along with it, and the fear of dying and all of these other things that go with it squashes the economies, in every country that it's affected. And so we are seeing obviously some resurgence, and even in China, right? Of course, what do you believe and what can't you believe of what's come out of China? I don't know. They regulate everything that comes out of China, any information that comes out of China. So it's hard to say. But you are starting to see some potential next waves, as well as even our government, our specialists, health specialists are coming out and saying, we have to be careful not to open too soon, because history has shown, when you go back and you look at the Spanish flu, and you look at different states that opened up at different times. If you compare the numbers between, I think it was, Louisiana that opened up earlier than New York, was something I was looking at. They had a second wave, right? So where New York, had closed earlier and stayed closed longer, they did not have a second wave, or whereas Louisiana did, so the experts, that's what they're trying to figure out, right? I'm not an expert in that.
And you hear those opinions like that you said, as far as do the numbers kind of equal the severity of what the economy has done to us, as far as locked us up. But now there's people out there, you'll talk to doctors or surgeons or whomever, that say, well, the numbers aren't finalized yet as far as this is concerned. So we can easily look at the flu or the common cold or whatever it might be. And we had years and years and years of numbers to be able to track. There's immunity now, there's shots. There's
absolutely. This is brand new.
We haven't seen the full effect of this yet. And they believe there's obviously still a lot of people out there right now that are infected and don't even know it. So we haven't even seen that happen yet. So
right.
With it being airborne, can the numbers essentially get to where people are like, whoa, okay, I get it.
Right, right. Well, and that's why my question of what if this is the new norm, right? So what are you going to do to adapt? Because I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area. I'm not privy to the data, right? We don't run in those circles. So my job is to just challenge people and what I do personally, right? Like I'm sitting in an RV, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we made massive personal decisions 2 years ago, because we saw how we were spending, what we were doing, that we were not being, good stewards over our finances, and we were living at large and everything else, and said, no, like, what if there's a massive shift in this economy, we won't be able to sustain that level of spending. We won't be able to sustain, all the eating out we're doing, and excess spending, and the car payments and the house payments. So like, what if we have to shift? We're so buried in debt, and liabilities, that we wouldn't be able to sustain. So we made a shift 2 years ago and began to liquidate things that were not necessary and become as cash positive as possible, and reduce our liabilities. Now I'm to a point where I can go anywhere. I can do anything. And thank God that we made the decisions that we made. We're sitting here looking at it going, oh my God, like the timing was impeccable on that. And so my point is, we don't know what we don't know, right? But what we do know is that we are going to see significant consequences because of it, whether it was justified or not. Regardless, the outcome, the fallout economically from this is going to be severe.
Well, with that being said, too, and I have a local surgeon that has come on the last 2 weeks. I know you've seen him. He's
Yeah,
very well versed. He's very well known in the community. And he says, look, nobody knows. There's
yeah,
no magic wand right now. We're
right.
all just, if you think that we're just sitting around, he said, I've almost got to the point where I might jump off social media because everybody's an expert, right?
Well,
And
of
he's
course.
like, but if you're a surgeon or you're in the medical field, listen, if we had something, when we have an idea, if we had and we think something might work, believe believe it. We're throwing everything against the wall to try to say, okay, we have that cure. We're not here waiting either. We're not hiding behind the scenes, or we're not going nanny boo boo. Like, this is not some scheme that was derived. This is really what's going on. And yet none of us have a magic wand. You can
Correct.
you can listen to Fauci, or you can listen to Gupta, or you can listen to the Attorney General, or the president, or all the president's men and women, and nobody has an answer. We're just all trying to figure out what's the next step, because eventually the band-aid has to be ripped off. and
Right. Absolutely.
and
Yeah, and whatever the outcome is medically from this, what are you doing to take care of your family, right? Like that's the big thing, is people's businesses are being severely, in all sectors, are being severely impacted. Life as we know it is changed. They're talking, 18 months potentially of social distancing to make sure this thing doesn't resurge again. They're talking I mean, from the top, like this is coming from the experts, right? Are talking about the changes that are going to need to be implemented. So, business and how we interact and how we do, and I'm even working with people now looking at international markets, right? Where depending on how things develop here, the opportunity might not necessarily be here in the US per se as it is in international markets in other countries. There's
well,
lots of opportunity there.
and people were saying, remember when they were all saying that you can only get this once and never again? And
Right.
now we're seeing
It's not true.
hundreds of cases in
Yeah.
other countries where they're starting to see it gotten 2 or 3 more times.
Absolutely,
So yeah,
absolutely. So it's we're in this for the long haul. You know what I mean? Like this isn't just one of those things where it's going to be tomorrow. So, what are you doing to plan, to adapt, to change, to pivot, to shift, like whatever adjective you want to use,
yeah.
verb you want to use, like we've got to figure out, how do we do business? How do we continue to thrive and push forward if this becomes the new norm,
And prepare, because I know that my wife is at a point now where she believes that she's probably going to eventually, well, she is going to eventually open back up.
Yep.
I know her goal right now is May 15th, middle of May, somewhere around there, because that's kind of what they're talking about.
Right.
But she's preparing. I mean, she's ordering masks for people that come in, and for her people from a really good company that we found.
Nice.
and and she's preparing to have to start to wear scrubs. She believes that the days of wearing your hair down and doing all those things are going to go away,
Yep. Yep.
because she's going to have to start to wear hair up in a ponytail or wear the whole Aunt Jemima thing.
Sure.
And I mean, things are just different. So
Yeah, it's a huge shift in doing business, and that's what people are just going to have to consider is, they have, like, we have to stop living in a fairy tale land, right? Stop living in a bubble, and realize, wow, this might be long term. What do I do to adapt and change, and adapt my business so that I can thrive and I can overcome the obstacles that are in front of us? Because there's a lot of opportunity too. Because with all of this change comes a lot of opportunity, and that, that's my big thing that we're looking at is, what can we do? I mean, we shifted, right? I have a partnership in a company that, a couple months ago, when we saw the demand, it's a DoD contractor. You kind of alluded to it as far as the mask and stuff, but the demand was immediately PPE, right? It was protective equipment. So we reached out, we made connections. Oh man, we reached out, we made connections, did what we need to do, and we're filling orders for PPE all over the country, and world. So we've got clients all over the U.S., federal government, Puerto Rico, eye doctor offices. I mean, you name it, right? Like,
and he's not, to those people out there, he's not price gouging. I mean, you're going to find that he's dollars better than what you're seeing as the going rate out there. So
it's insane what people
definitely connect with him.
Yeah.
Well, man, again, I appreciate you coming on, telling the world about what next. I'm sure we'll do it again next week.
Yeah, I just want people to think, man. I just want people to think and to really take this serious. If they hear it, those that have ears to hear it, is you've got to start reinventing yourself now, right? You've got to start implementing now.
Yes.
Don't
so that you're not living on chicken nuggets.
No one wants to live on dinosaur chicken nuggets for the next 6 months, bro.
Even though
they're good.
I think I could do it. Mm-hmm.
Listen,
I think I could live on these for 6 months.
I don't know, bro. I've seen all your gourmet pictures on Facebook of all these different meals you've been having. You've been roughing it hard.
Yes, it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. I don't know what I'm going to do when life goes back to normal. I was never a homebody. I've never been a homebody.
Right.
Now I'm 31 days into this, and I'm like, I can do this.
I can do this.
Yeah. If I can just get the pool heater fixed.
Right.
Done.
Life would be perfect.
Yes. Hey,
it's amazing.
Nori, I see you just loved our video. Get him some dinosaur chicken nuggets.
That's right.
All right, man. I got it 2:00 in the wrestling room. So
sounds good. Have fun.
Knock out my food here, and we'll do it again. I'm sure we'll talk later.
Enjoy. Bon appetit.
Thanks for coming on, man.
See you, bro. Take care.
That was cool.